to introduce you guys to Luis Navarro, represent Aquascaping extraordinaire from Seachem. I have been friends with Luis for many, many years, dating back
over
to
20 years.
20 years now. He's always been an absolutely amazing aquascaper. I've always looked up to him in that some of the stuff that he's done. So he is going to today kind of put together an aquascape for you, kind of talk about all the basics and stuff, and some of the things that he really emphasizes in terms of creating aquascape, and what he uses in terms of how Seachem really helps him really make the aquascape absolutely fabulous. So without further ado, Luis.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so today what I really want for you guys to take home is not so much the idea of how to make something beautiful. I want you to take knowledge that is going to help you improve as a plant keeper so your aquascaping gets better over a period of time. Most people focus on the beauty of aquascaping and they neglect the basic knowledge and the understanding of the ecology of a planted aquarium. We at Seachem, we're a full-blown laboratory, and we conducted experiments, and all of the products that we have, they have been researched and they have been put together in a way that is easily accessible for you and the plants as well. So we're going to go over these very briefly because I want to also finish this. I don't want to keep you here until midnight. So at Seachem, we just look at it as a pyramid. And the foundation of it, what is it? Is the substrates. Now, ever since aquascaping took over the world, we focus in using aquasoils. And I'm using aquasoil today. Our aquasoil is Aquasolum. It's a humid-based product. The granulometry is very even. It's great for aquascaping. And unlike others, it does not affect the water chemistry as much as some others that they actually have very drastic fluctuations from one day to the next. We still suggest to do water changes. Keep in mind that smaller tanks, the fluctuations happen much more rapidly, and you have to be conscious of that. And most importantly, you have to think ahead of time what you're going to design, all right? You can combine substrates, that's not a problem, but again, aquascaping is not for everyone. And if you turn around and look at Scott's tanks here, you will notice that many of these tanks are growing with gravel. And yes, you can grow tanks with gravel. And we at Seachem provide several types of gravels that they can actually be used for growing aquatic plants successfully if you want to just keep plants. A tank full of plants is a very pleasant thing to see. You don't have to have pretty much anything other than healthy growing plants. And for that, we offer you multiple types of substrates that they can either be used as a decoration gravel, or you can grow plants in it. So we have that option there. And one of them is probably one of the most popular. We were remembering with Bailin the very first time Mr. Amano was over America. And we only had two choices of substrates at the time. And it was the flourish and it was onyx sand. And Mr. Amano got more interested on the onyx sand because it wasn't too rough. They are the ones who developed the first aquasoils, and their idea was to provide the plants with a substrate that will not be too rough on the roots. But if you go as far back as we do, we've been using fluoride in growing pretty much any plant in the book and then some. And the beauty of this is that it will only get better with time. And if you move out of the state, or if you move to a new house, you can put that thing in a bucket and it will work all the same the next time, and the next time, and the next time. So you can actually keep it and reuse it time and time over, unlike aquasoils. You can only do so much with it. So again, if you just want to grow beautiful plants and not aquascape, the gravels are probably the best option for you to use. All right, so that's foundation. Plants root. Plants take nutrition from the substrates, and that's the reason why now Aquasolum is so popular, because the plants will actually take off much easier. They will actually transition from the emergent growth to underwater growth. And that's the reason why we use that. If you don't mind, we're going to get this out first. So we're going with a very traditional design. Remember, this isn't a master class. What we're doing today, never do it at home. Always, always divide your work in threes. Get the equipment, everything you need. Get your tank, your stand, your lights, your CO2 system, your gravels, your decoration, everything. And then play with it until you're satisfied with the design you're coming up. That will be your stage 2. And then and only then, sit on it, look at it. If you're thinking about competing, take pictures. Aquascaping is a thing, and it's actually making money for some folks out there. So if that is what you're pursuing, learn about techniques, learn about how you want to keep your tanks looking with a very defined style, or just a planted tank. That's you. That's you at the end of the day. So just learn what the basics so you can actually get ahead. So don't run a marathon without training, pretty much. All right? So it's a 100 centimeter by 40 by 40 rectangular shape. We're going to use a 2-to-1 ratio. So which means that one structure is going to be bigger than the opposite. It's the easiest to do. And we're going to keep things off the center. If you put anything that center, it looks too symmetrical. So it's boring and it just doesn't look decent. So we're going to express aquascape, but remember what we're doing today, don't do that at home. Get the equipment, get the materials. Everything I'm using today is from this store. So you have a dojo in the back. You can actually take measurements of your tank and play with the wood and be satisfied with what you are taking home. Because you can be fooled by a beautiful piece and just come home with something that is 20 pounds and you want to squeeze it in a 60 centimeter aquarium. It's just crazy. It's not going to work. So just keep that in mind. And all right, let's move on. As a base substrate, I'm going to use matrix to create a slope. This is an old trick that I've been using for a while, and it's bone dry right now. So this is just going to create a slope. I'm going to use, if I can get it out, there it goes, Pristine, which is a bacterial supplement. And all these bacteria are on seed form, I guess you can say. And they will react and grow once everything is in the tank. And these are low oxygen loving bacteria. It's not anaerobic bacteria. And they will also help you to remove buildup of detritus over a period of time. And if you have a tank that has a very complex layout, right, or a very thick substrate, you can use these to your benefit. Everybody who's been doing this for a while knows that cover plants, ground cover plants, after you trim one too many times, you will develop cyanobacteria every now and again. Well, injecting this in your substrate will help you maintain a very healthy bacterial population in your substrate, and it will revert that naturally. So it's an organic way of fixing things up. So what I'm doing here is adding just a little bit, because the matrix is dry. And matrix is a, it's biological media that is probably one of the top 5 most popular items at Seachem. And if you look at Green Aqua, Aquarium Design Group, Horizon Aquatics in England, they use these by the bucketfuls. And the reason why is because it's a very efficient media that is multiple uses. You know, you can use it for what I'm doing here in your filters. For each liter you put in, you get 700 square meters of surface area. And the outer layer will grow aerobic bacteria, but as it gets on the center of the granule, the circulation will be restricted to roughly about 50 gallons per hour. And then is when anaerobic bacteria grows. So you have the benefit of two different bacteria growing. And I know that over a period of time, a lot of people get lazy and they don't service the filters, right? And they build up with mold. Most of the media out there is thin-thread glass. If you don't maintain it, it will just completely get covered with mold, and it will just not function as it should be. So it is in us, to keep the filters clean, just so you can benefit from that. beauty of matrix is that even when this happens, you will still get, the tank, you will get the nitrification by the filter, even if your water is running very slow. So that's the beauty of it. And that's probably the reason why you see so many people using these. All right, so we can start opening the Aquasolo.
How many bags you got?
We can do 2 for down. So we're going to create a slope. It's going to be higher on the back. It's going to have about 2 to 3 inches on the front. And that would allow me to use ground covers, a middle ground, and a background plant or stem plants. So we're going to go fast and furious. We're going to do express aquascaping today. Yeah, keep them coming. Please. All right, so foundation is first. Then what happened? Well, that's probably the most controversial thing in aquascaping or in planted aquariums. Water chemistry. Why? Because every city have different water. Some people have to deal with alkaline water. Some people have to deal with very soft water. What are the benefits of having soft water? Well, you can grow a lot of plants and you can adjust your water chemistry. And for that, we have many buffers that you can use for that. I personally like to have an alkalinity of roughly about 1.3, 1.4 milliequivalences per liter, or roughly a KH of 4, and a GH, or mineral content, of 2 milliequivalences, or 6. Just remember, alkalinity is one thing, and general hardness is another one. General hardness is only for calcium and magnesium. So those numbers will pretty much allow you to grow any plant in the book. Okay. Probably. I'm going to even this out first.
Okay. Okay.
If you guys have any questions, please do ask. Because sometimes I just go quiet and I don't think about it. And
what will happen if you overdose it? Like,
you can't. You cannot. Bacteria will always adapt to the biomass that you have in your aquarium, right? If anything, it will probably cause to have a spike of ammonia because of organic buildup, or because it's decomposing. But you can have an aquarium with 10 fish, and you can add in all the bacteria you want. The only bacteria that they're going to grow are the ones that can deal with that specific amount of fish. If you add 5 more, then those bacteria, they're going to have to propagate, because it's not enough for them to metabolize all the ammonia that the fish are generating. So that's the reason why you have so many supplements. And for the beginning of the tank, we have Sure Start. Here it is. So you have 2 sources of bacteria. You have stability, which is pretty much how you treat a new tank syndrome, and pristine, which is for once the tank is established, or for spaces where the water is restricted, it doesn't circulate all that well. So it's not something that you can say, I will overdose it. Okay, one more.
I wanted to point out one of your club members has a birthday coming up. I'm going to give you a bag of aquafilm.
Thank you, sir.
Does anybody else have a birthday this month?
You go, Sue. Go, Sue. Go, Sue.
Oh my goodness. Are you serious? You get an extra. I want to see
February 5.
February 3rd.
5.
So,
February 5.
oh, okay. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, everybody.
All right. So when you aquascape, I'm more inclined to the nature aquarium style, which is probably the easiest of them all and the one that I enjoy and probably the one that I do the most for that reason. You have multiple ways of accomplishing a beautiful nature aquarium style. You can go with wood only, or you can do a rock garden. This is the style that was developed by Mr. Mano back in the day when we didn't have any other knowledge but Dutch aquariums. And this is the one that I'm more inclined to use. So today we're going to use a Ryobuku style. I know you.
Yeah.
You have the same last name as me, right?
Yes.
You're the violin.
Yeah.
Like, damn, nice to meet you. Thank you for coming. All right, so this is Ryobuku style, is as the Japanese culture referred to this. And the whole idea is just to have harmony in the structures and plant around them so it looks nice. And it's not too complicated, honestly, it's not. So usually what I tell people who is beginning to aquascape, which is usually the people that I talk to the most, divide your tank into thirds. And just keep in mind that when you aquascape, you want to stay off the center. You want to create a 2-to-1 ratio, a triangular design, either or you can create concave spaces and define the background by trimmings. So it's very simple. Later, start looking at people who actually have more advanced aquascaping techniques. I strongly suggest for you, if you really want to get into it, to look at the tutorials of Josh Sim or Takayuki Fukada. We have top aquascapers in America. We have Stephen Chung. We have Mr. Ryan in the back there. Thank you for coming, by the way. And these folks are actually actively competing, unlike yours truly that hates that. All right. So again, we're going to stick to the idea that I had previously. So this is going to be my main piece. Keep in mind that when you work with wood, what happens? It's buoyant, right? Some other things, but it's something that you have to do ahead of time. We don't have time for that, so we're going to glue the heck out of it. And that way we know that we'll stay in place. So I'm going to create a base that is nice and steady. And there, I'm going to use, I better put my gloves on. Here. That's the last thing I need in life, sticky fingers. When you're at home and you take your time, you have multiple ways of securing wood and rock. The easiest way is to use liquid cyanocrylate, a piece of paper, piece of cardboard, or even cigarette butts. I think you can buy them. You can stuff them in between crevices, and you just dump a little bit of the liquid cyanocrylate, and it will generate a chemical reaction that bonds like glass almost, and you will see it smoke. Just be careful. If you look at aquascapers like what's the name of the Filipino guy that is, I just keep forgetting his name. He makes these beautiful complex aquascapes, and he presented in Dubai a week before I was there, and he was wearing this one mask that, because the tank was just fuming, and they have to put fans and stuff because, you know, it's really toxic. So just be careful, and probably one of the reasons why here in America we got really good at it is because we can use the gel form of cyanocrylate, and we just use an accelerator. So what it does, it will just make the bond much quicker, and it will be clear. If you use water only, unfortunately, it will turn white, and it's an eyesore, especially when you're cleaning your tanks in between rocks. So, well, I guess I'll just do it here. There it goes. All right, so I'm going to apply a very good amount. And I want to make sure that it's making contact rock and wood. And I'm going to use this accelerator. Scott sells these stuff, by the way, and all you really have to do is just, and that's it, leave it be. When you're at home, take your time. Again, don't do what I'm doing today. You need to let it set. It will take about 10 minutes for it to be really solid, because only the outer layer, it will set at first. Then it will start penetrating, it will just bond completely. So just be careful with that. I guess this was my opposite. Give away, Sue, give away. Was it this one? I forgot which one is it now. I should have put them.
Another birthday girl?
No, it was this one. There it goes. It was not that high. Right there. All right.
Okay, while he's playing with that, who has algae in their aquarium?
Who doesn't?
First hand with the red shirt up. Second hand up.
We can send you some if you want.
Seachem has these really unique algae scrubbers. If you have not used them, they are super cool. First of all, they float. They come in a 6, a 12, and an 18-inch. This is the 6-inch.
There
And
we
they
go.
float in the aquarium. So if you get busy, the phone rings, the door, you can just let go of it, come back to it. It's very super cool because it doesn't have a blade on one side. You push it, you can turn it on the other side. It has a pad. You can retract it, you don't have to scratch your back. Or if you drop it, you won't chip the blade or anything.
I don't fit. Trying to get another
Again, this is a 6-inch
contact point.
one.
There you go.
You just flip it around.
Voila.
Your replacements are going to be, you just pop it apart here and you replace 3 blades or 3 of the pads. Anyway, it's ergonomically correct.
Thank you.
You can have that one.
All right. So as you can see, this wood is beautiful and it's very dense. So it will waterlog very quickly, and I really like to use this wood for my demos because it's probably one of the friendliest. It does not leach that many tannins to the water, and it doesn't get covered with a lot of fungi like others do. So that's probably the reason why if you see my work doing demos, it's always with this, because it's just easy for people to use on their first tank, and then they can evolve to whatever, they want.
everybody get raffle tickets? Everybody got a raffle ticket? Yes?
Sorry. It's overlapping a lot. How I had it.
Are you okay with the wood touching the glass?
Yes. I'm not going to do the maintenance. Honestly, the only reason I'm doing that is because one of the things that is really annoying to me is the mirroring effect. Right? So if you look at competition, they really emphasize on that. They actually do the planting in a way that blocks that, and they go as far as using film and a bunch of other things to prevent that from happening. So sometimes can be used to your benefit, but sometimes it will actually hurt you. So when you do a planting and it's close to the glass, it's a very long tank. It really doesn't make much of a difference. And I like to use the small magnets too. If I get OCD, I can just get in there and just clean it. It really doesn't take much. But again, I'm not doing the maintenance. So thank you, sir.
While they're doing that, I'm gonna pull one of these raffle tickets and we'd like to get after
You want gloves? Ooh.
raffle tickets.
Let's move a little bit here. There.
The last three numbers are 599. 599.
I got two numbers.
I'll do one more while they're messing up there. If you got the ticket, it is 582.
Hey, that's me.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
582.
Just hold it there for a while.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold it.
Is it making contact here? Slightly?
There, okay, now it is.
I'll do one more. Oh, hang on, one more. 580. 580.
No. No, I was gonna. I think this laminate, if I hit it hard, it's gonna.
Yeah.
Well, that may just work. What do you know?
Hey, there you go.
Okay, let's do one more. How about 612? 612. Here. One. More.
Ooh, this one's hard. You see a contact point?
There's a small one.
It's got the damn face. All right, so while we wait for a little bit for this to set, as you can see, there's nothing to it. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of wood. And with time and patience, you can again go to the door, just look at them closely. Just look at your materials. Put them under the light. There is always a piece that will generate more shades and it will look better inclined to the left or the right. So look at the materials, look at the rocks, always look at the shades they provide you. And that kind of will guide you in which direction you will position the driftwood. That's very important. Now, this is going to be a full planted aquarium. And the reason why is because probably the best thing you guys can do, if it's your first time that is to have a tank that is heavily planted. You want to have a lot of plants in your aquariums because it will help you break in the tank a lot easier. You will have less algae problems. It will be a lot easier for you to maintain. How to properly maintain a planted aquarium? It goes with several things. The most important is your light. Your light, your substrate, your filtration, and your CO2 system. So let's go one at a time. Your lights, they will actually allow the plants to metabolize and photosynthesize. Fertilizers and photosynthesize, therefore. If you were looking at lab conditions, growing conditions, they really like 6700 Kelvin temperature. And it's really ugly. I hate that because it's more on the yellowish side, but you will actually grow beautiful plants under that temperature. I personally like balancing between 8,000 to 10,000 Kelvin. That's my sweet spot, and it actually make the plants look much, much better. You need to make sure that the light you have is generating enough power, which is very easy to do. I know Scott provided here. You can rent it, take it home, and make sure that the lights are getting a reading on the foreground of 50.
How much?
50, 50. Center, again, this is going to be with the rule of thirds, 100, and up here, 150 to 180, give or take, right? Because this is where you're going to have all the stem plants growing. If you want to do it in lumens, you can do 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 80 to 100 on the top. I trust a power reader much more, and again, you can just rent it here at. You rent it or you loan it?
Yeah, we have rentals here.
Okay, so because they're expensive, I know that much. You can just take it home, make sure that what you're taking is the right thing, and that will allow you to have either enough light or you're going to have to get a better light system. So that's for light.
Is that number universal, like 50 on the front?
For the most part, it will actually allow you to grow any ground cover at 50, any ground cover, and any middle ground plant, and any. Now, it's going to reflect on your fertilization, because you're going to be pushing the plants into high gears, right? So when you do this, what's the most important element that the plants need? Carbon. 79% of the plant requirements is carbon, and the reason why we use CO2, right? Carbon is the backbone of life. Now, using compressed gas CO2 systems is the best option. Yes, it is, but it takes some learning. Why? Because when we inject CO2 to the water, it turns into carbonic acid. So it will naturally drop the pH of the water, right? So you will have a fluctuation that when you start the system, it's going to start dropping the pH until it hits the alkalinity in your water, right? If you don't have an alkalinity to buffer that effect, it will just keep on dropping. It can be dangerous for fish and plants. So always having that buffer allows you to have that peace of mind that you can accurately tune it to your precise pH. How can you do this? With the CO2 tables. So these are really simple. You can download them, and according to the KH you have in your aquarium, you inject CO2 to drop the pH to the desired concentration of CO2 dissolved in milligrams per liters. I push it well over 30. I don't know how you guys rock here, but yeah, we were joking earlier. You know, when we just start seeing the fish going up, that's when you just stop. So, and honestly, one of the reasons why people fail in planted aquariums and develop tons of algae is because of three things only. It's a CO2 imbalance because you're underdoing it. It's because you are doing not the correct dosing on your macro elements, and originally nitrogen and phosphorus, they are the troublemakers. Either you are underdosing nitrogen or you're overdosing phosphorus. So usually those three alone are the reason why most people fail. Lack of maintenance, overexposure of light on the plants. We all live in the same planet, and the sun rises and the sun sets. There is no need to have 12 hours of light in your aquariums. If you look closely, many species of Protallas and Linophilus will actually start closing down on you after 6-7 hours of light. The technology we're using right now is RGB. Is really hard on the plants sometimes. So just picture having all these radiation just hitting the plants constantly for a long, long period of time. There will be a point that they will just shut down. I don't care how much CO2 you're adding. And when the plant's weak, they get weak, then is when you start having algae issues. And you have to look at all these little details. And one more that is very important to me is water temperature. I live in Texas, and we have one of the most beautiful places. Like in Florida, you've seen those rivers. Remember the river? And the common denominator is the water temperature. It's a steady 72 degrees around the year. So they like it cool. So between 74 and 77, you will grow beautiful plants, and they will love it. You can use heaters, yes, but the heaters, they're not for heating up the water. The heaters are to maintain the temperature, not to go below your 74. That's why you see fans, you know, that they're designed for aquariums for the summer, because sometimes some places on Earth don't have AC units like we do here, and they have to blow air to cool down the water. So just remember that, because that one is huge. You want to start the tank 6 hours, but never overdo 8 hours in photo period. Temperature, just keep it in between 74 and 77. And make sure that you have enough CO2. CO2 tables, or you can rely on a pH checker. For beginners, it's super friendly. The reagent reacts to the changes in pH. Blue is insufficient. Green is where you should be, and yellow, you kill everything. So I cannot give it any easier than that.
Good question.
Yes.
About, purling, is it problematic if it's like too much all
No,
the time? Or
never.
like somewhere, no,
Never.
No damage.
Purling means they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, but if like full time, like 7 hours, so much purling, there's no damage.
It's fine.
to the plants?
Worry when they stop purling. Yeah, that usually is a great indication. If anything, that's when you really have to worry about balancing your aquarium with your dosings. Under laboratory conditions and in continuous testings, we came to the conclusion that a concentration in between 10 to 20 milligrams per liter of nitrates will grow pretty much any plant as long as it's balanced with your phosphates. They should be at around 0.5 to 1. And potassium is probably the easiest of the macros. That one is really hard to test for because it's similar, chemically similar to calcium. But on the other hand, it's really no big deal. You can have a concentration in between 8 to 15 milligrams per liter of potassium, and the plants will take it just fine. So it's nothing to worry about. Every plant tank is different. So you're going to have to really look at the plant mass you have in your aquariums and adjust your fertilization to those methods. when you start underdosing and you are exposing plants to high power and rich substrates and fertilizers, then and only then you will start developing problems. Because why? Well, right now the biggest problem is that people, as they develop more confidence growing plants, they like to use the all-in-one fertilizers. And that's fine, because usually with experience you will actually see the deficiency developing in the plant, and then you will just correct it and fix it and move along. If you're a beginner, I strongly suggest to keep a logbook and test. If you're not testing your water, you're flat out guessing what you're doing, right? So if you start looking at your aquarium that is getting infested with algae, and instead of actually conducting a full set of testing and know what's going on in your tank, you start looking at how can I kill this algae, you started wrong, right? A lot of people make the huge mistake of stop dosing their plants. It's like saying, like, if there are any doctors here, it's like if you're saying people with anemia, stop eating. You gotta stop eating. You gotta stop eating until you get better. You cannot do that. You will weaken the plants even more, and you will make a problem even bigger. So it's all about that proper ratio, and you have to balance your aquarium. Once they take off, it's a lot easier. If you're comfortable using all-in-one products, carry on, that's fine. But we like it to have one of each, because it will give you the flexibility of correcting the deficiency and move along. If you have an all-in-one, what are you gonna do? Have more all-in-one? You're gonna increase your nitrates and you're gonna drop your phosphates even more. It's gonna be a bigger problem. So again, I'm not saying don't use it. All I'm saying is, like, use something that it's, whether it's potassium, phosphorus, or nitrogen, individually to correct that deficiency, and you will be fine. And that's water supplementation. Filtration is very important. We talked about matrix earlier. Ideally, moving the aquarium 5 times an hour, the capacity of the aquarium is ideal. I like it more like 15. So I think that one of the most things that we overlook as well is filtration. You are dealing with probably the most dirty tank, because planted aquariums are just flat out dirty. If you think that cichlids are dirty, planted aquariums generate a lot of nitrogenous waste. And that's the reason why we do so many water changes. So you have to stay on top of your game, because we're dosing and you're doing water changes to compensate. Whether you use an EI method or whatever method you use, we rely on water changes because that's the only way that we can just clear that up. Therefore, biological filtration is crucial. So make sure that you have loads of it, right? So you can help metabolize a little bit faster all that waste. Multiple ways of helping this is, for instance, if you have wood and you are concerned about tannins in the water, you can rely on Purigen. I'm sure everybody knows here Purigen. And you can actually put it on your filter and use it a couple of times after if you regenerate it, and it will actually help you maintain the water clarity, which is very important in a planted tank, because the water, the light will penetrate correctly. If you have a tank that is full of tannins, it will restrict the light, right? So that's another problem that can develop over time, and you will think that you don't have enough light, and then you're going to add more, and you're going to make a bigger problem. So all these little details are very important. Using Purigen is super safe. You don't have to worry about dosing. I heard many people saying that, oh no, it will just deplete my water from nitrates. No, it's an scavenging resin, and it will target dissolve nitrogenous waste. That's all there is to it. So you can conduct your testings and you will see that there's no impact. So use it freely. I don't know, like a 60 centimeter tank, I put up to 3 of the 100 millimeter bags that are designed for 100 gallons of water each. So just saying, and I haven't killed anything just yet. All right, so now we have a nice and steady structure.
What about carbon? What do you think? What's your take on carbon?
It's good at the beginning only, because it will take care of a lot of organics. But if you don't service it over a period of time, what happens is that it will absorb phosphates as well. And when it gets saturated, we'll just leach them back to the water. So unless you are very consistent on your changing, at the beginning it's fine, but not forever. I think we need one more, Baitlin?
You got one more tag on the board.
Do I? Thank you. Oh, I see it now.
That's the style these days.
Yes, I will close it in.
I think just for safety reasons, I'm gonna put it there.
All right, out of everybody here, who came the
Yeah.
furthest? Who drove the furthest? Indianapolis? Further
Oh,
than
thank you.
Indianapolis? No? Wow, thanks.
What's that?
Get it in there, I'll hold it up.
No, everybody's birthday is coming now. Oh. Thanks, man. There it goes. All right, so one more thing. When you're aquascaping and you are becoming more familiar, it's more, I hear this more often than usual, that people assume that they're fertilizing correctly, and they're making huge mistakes because one silly thing that is overlooked all the time, and that is water displacement, right? So if you buy a 50-gallon aquarium and you go home with a ton of rocks and wood and substrate, and you're just like, 5 gallons, I have 45 gallons of water. I'm gonna fertilize with 45 gallons of water. Grab a bucket and measure what you have. You'll probably have 29 gallons. So water displacement is very important. The first time you fill the aquarium, as painful as it is, go bucket by bucket, 5, 10, 15, and count the gallons you have in, because it will only help you fertilize correctly. Again, if you're not testing, you're guessing. So just little tricks that it will help you improve. It will just make you a better aquarist and better planted aquarium keeper. Sir?
Do you account for the water volume in your canister filter when you're...
Everything. But honestly, it's not that much.
Yeah.
It will have to be a humongous 2262 type of filter to make an impact. I don't even think the Biomaster, what is that the biggest one, 350, 450?
850.
850?
Yeah.
What's the capacity on that one?
I'd probably say at least, you're at least looking at 1.5 gallons, 2 gallons.
And the bucket chamber is?
That's
Roughly?
About, yeah, probably like a gallon.
Yeah, so after water displacement, you're probably dealing with like probably 1.5 gallons, 2 gallons more.
Probably.
So yeah, it's just those little things that makes a huge difference. That's the reason why I like to use old-fashioned canister filters, because I know exactly what's going in and I can load them up all the way to the top. And the water goes in, it comes out. It doesn't go to the woo 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 that all these new filters are doing. But all right, so I'm gonna add a few more rocks here, and then we can. Are we taking a break or we're gonna carry on? Because I know Scott says that he wanted to give snacks and. Yeah, 'cause I think he wanted to give him pizza or something. I'm good to go, man, but just.
All right, we'll do a couple more raffles. You got your blankets out. 601. 601 back there. You got it?
Oh, I glue myself to this.
How about 597? 597. Ready? 597?
Okay. Okay.
So he wants a break or not?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, he told me that.
One more, 598.
I see. Okay.
Contacts back here.
Got a few more while we're
I'll tell you what.
about 616.
I think it's punctured. So
616. Here. Right there.
here it is.
Five nine five. 595. Going what? 595? Yep.
I think we can stop there for now.
Pass it down. One more.
No.
Thanks, man. Thank you, thank you.
This one has a slope.
Oh, we're moving fast, I think.
We're good. You need a little bit more substrate in the back for your planting.
Yes, for sure.
So, you want to do that now, or do you want to?
Might as well.
Okay.
While we wait. Tell you what, let me be back there.
Go ahead. Put the scissor down.
Yeah. Don't stab me, Biglin.
The precarious spot.
I think there will be snacks. We're gonna take like a 10-15 minute break, so you guys can snack and drink something, and we'll finish planting
Yep.
then. So we'll be done in like 45 minutes. So go snack. It's
Yep.
yeah.
They should be back in a few minutes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Then let's carry on then. I thought they were here already. Any questions so far?
At what point do you kind of consider the filter pipes and the flow of the tank and how that kind of ties in everything?
Well,
that you're looking at?
I'm so glad you brought that up, man. I'm obsessed with water circulation.
Right.
And one of the reasons why is because it gets overlooked all the time. And that's one of the things that I really like about learning from other countries. And the Japanese realize that having the pipes in the back of your aquariums is not the proper way of doing it. Even more so on rimless tanks. If you have an intake here and a return here, even if you angle it, you will have a bunch of dead spots, right? When you have the intake and the return on the side, you will have the water circulating around and back. You can actually, once you prime the filter, you can sprinkle a little bit of equilibrium or just a drop of dye, and you will actually see it go round and round and round, right? It would also help you move the CO2 throughout the aquarium. For this size, we have CO2 diffusers. That's probably the easiest and the friendliest way to start a planted aquarium. But honestly, anything that is over 45 to 50 gallons, I like to use reactors. And the reason is that when you use a CO2 reactor, the entire tank gets saturated with the same amounts of CO2. When you're diffusing, everything is going up, right? So a very small amount gets absorbed in the water, and most of it, sadly, will dissipate to the atmosphere. When you use a reactor, there is zero loss, and you will have the same amount or concentrations of CO2 in point A, B, C, and D.
And cleaner wood.
And you will not see all the fuzz and the bubbles that the diffusers generate. And for photography, that's horrible. It's just something that it's not very convenient. Now, if you must, if you really want to use a diffuser, I strongly advise for you to at least every 6 weeks or so rotate them. So when you're doing your maintenance, just move the returns to the opposite side and place the CO2 here. And do this every 6 weeks. So at least you will have a much more balanced growth. Otherwise, you're going to end up with one side that is just growing super fast, and the other one is going to be like, eh. I really like the work of an ichthyologist, Oliver Lucanus, from Canada. And he really advocates for strong water circulation. And he's right about it. If you pay attention to where amphibious aquatic plants grow naturally, it's in spring water where the water moves quite fast. Whether are the spring-fed systems in Florida, the Guadalupe, the Comal, San Marcos in Texas, they all have that thing in common. They have substrates that they're rich in carbonates and bicarbonates, and the plants can actually also obtain carbon from that source. And it's water that is, for the most part, alkaline, and plants thrive quite well. There is another person that is actually writing wonderful planted aquarium books, Edu Fonseca Jr. It's a Brazilian gentleman, and he's finally publishing in English. I strongly suggest for you to find his books. This guy is the real deal. And they're really, the only reason why they start looking at things closely is because in Brazil, and you know how famous they are now. I mean, Brazilian aquascaping is just, I mean, they're up there. They have very limited resources when it comes to driftwood. They have a lot of restrictions, and they cannot collect legally, I don't think. However, they can bring in rocks. So for them, it's really easy to import Seiyuyu stone or mountain stones from China and use them to their benefit. And that's how the Brazilian style was developed. And the reason why you will hardly ever see a piece of wood or anything used, well, you'll be surprised. But for the most part, it's very, very, very rock-oriented. And what's the biggest problem when you use Seiyuyu stone? Alkalinity, KH, right? Right. Well, it turns out that both aerobic, different strains of Nitrosomonas and aerobic bacteria thrive and are more stable under slightly alkaline conditions. So they are actually working with plants that adapt to their needs rather than to just bend backwards to look for a specific collector type of species, right? Because they are focusing on competing, and they actually exchange information very, that's why they win the World Cup all the time. They're really good at teaming up and learning. So I'm surprised to see things that once you read it from this guy, you go like, oh God, yeah, completely, yeah. And it just makes sense, and it just clicks in, and then you start realizing that you can do so much more with little. And sometimes we just get obsessed with the water chemistry and oh no, if I don't have this plant, my layout is not going to look the perfect. And they just broke away from all that. And they focus on learning what they have, so they don't have to worry about mixing water, using this and using that. So that, I have to give it to them. That was very clever. And I mean, look what they are now. They're way up there. All right, so we're ready for breaking, or?
Oh, pretty soon. Well, I was gonna say, right up here by the tollway is Trout Park. It's an extant calcareous fen. And and the diversity of carex, there's skunk cabbage, and a lot of water plants that are there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's percolating all the time, even in the winter. So sometimes it doesn't freeze. That water is highly oxygenated and very alkaline.
Yeah.
With all the underlying limestone we have.
And usually these places, I'm gonna have to use a razor blade to move all that. Like in Florida, you will see fields and fields of Vallisnerias, Sagittarias, Cetarophilliums, even in high elevations in the mountains, you see all these true aquatic plants. And the plants that we grew up back in the day, I mean, I've been doing this for close to 35 years now, and we didn't have what we have now. When Mr. Balin and I started, how many plants did we have? 20 at best?
Maybe.
And you have to add the Vallisnerias and everybody else in it. It was rough. We didn't have this nice driftwood. We didn't have Seriuyu stone. We didn't have anything. You will have to exchange plants. If, like I was in Houston, he was in Dallas at the time. Now he lives here. We have Eric Leung in San Francisco, and we have the other Jeff guy, the Jeff Kropp up in Oakland, and we will just exchange plants, and that's how we start doing this. And we'll wait for the AGA convention to happen, and we will pay ridiculous prices for plants that you buy now for $5 a bunch. I mean, we fought over
Oh, yeah.
like really
All pieces.
small pieces of narrow leaf microsorums. I mean, it will get intense. And
What was it, $175 for that piece?
for the Trident, I pay $150 one time.
Oh,
Yeah. And it's crazy because that plant alone was probably one of the ones that Mr. Romano went crazy over. And that was during the Washington AGA convention. That was quite the thing. He didn't know that we have that many aquatic plants in America. So if you want to, I mean, the biggest nerds are there when it comes to plants. So he was just going crazy. He could not believe his eyes. It was hard for him to comprehend that we have that diversity in America, because he probably thought that it was like wasteland and we only have black bears and grizzly bears, you know. But he was pleasantly surprised, and the people who actually gave him all the plants, they came back home to see a full setup of ADA stuff, just from him to say thank you to them. So that was quite the thing. Everybody was jealous of them after. All right, so we're gonna just add a little bit more in the back. And this will emphasize even more the 2-to-1 ratio that I want to use, which is the easiest of them all. Got my brush there. Little brush thing. Thanks, sir. Yeah, in 2001, we have, at the time, I think he was the CEO, Klaus Christensen from Tropica, and everybody knows Tropica. And one of the things they do as a company, they travel the world and they bring the entire staff to places in Brazil or, you know, different places on Earth where aquatic plants naturally occur. He was back from Cuba, right, at the time.
Yep.
And during his presentation, he was introducing the hat item of the year, which was Hemianthus caliticroides cuba at the time, and we were fighting over that one too. So that was the year. 2001 was the year of, actually it was 2002, and then he started saying, we also found a beautiful new species, and it's called Prosepinaca palustris, and we were just like, nah, we have it here. And I was like, no, you don't. Like, yeah, we do. And it's funny because, well, he said, well, would you take me to where they live? And this was in Houston, Texas. It was my backyard, so I knew where they were. And then he started talking about Juncus repens. And he said, we found Juncus repens in Cuba. Yeah, we have it too. And he was like, no, you don't. They're like, yeah, we do. So we actually took him in the middle of November to Brazos Bend State Park, which is full of alligators, by the way. And he just jumped in the pond because he could not believe his eyes, just to get bunches of Juncus repens. And it turned out to be that particular plant we have in America was much more resilient and much easier to propagate than the one they found in Cuba, because in Cuba, it isolated itself for so many years, or centuries, God knows, that it was more
just keep in mind
inclined
some
to
of the
grow under
plants that
very
you guys
alkaline
have
conditions.
for
And
the
the one we
tropica
have
stuff
here in
that's in the
America,
back,
it actually
some of those
grows
plants
in
are maybe
different scenarios.
progenitors
So
of the
that was
stuff
pretty
you
cool.
collected. Yep.
But
Because they
you know,
tissue
he
culture
thought that
it.
he was
They-
going to come to
they
school,
isolate it,
new plants to
take
us,
the
and we're like,
plants,
nah, we have
tissue
that too.
culture it, and then they expand out. So a lot of the stuff might actually be some of the stuff you collected.
Right, just keep in mind, some of the plants that you guys have for the tropica stuff that's in the back, some of those plants are maybe progenitors of the stuff that you collected.
Yep.
Because they tissue culture them.
Yep.
They isolate it, take the plants, tissue culture it, and then they expand out. So a lot of the stuff might actually be some of the stuff you collected.
Yeah, he also used to go home with bags of plants, and the year after, I think is when Crystal Castleman was in Dallas, and she did the same in the middle of winter. She just jumped in. You guys took us to one of these places that the Engineer Corps of the Army, remember that? Yeah. It was controlled by the Army, and they said you cannot get into the ponds. And she's like, I don't care. She just jumped down her pants and she just jumped in the water. And the soldiers were like, can you please come out of the water, ma'am? Can you please? So she just came out with like 3 bunches of plants, like, oh yeah. Yeah, that was something. All right, so I'm ready for planting. So,
Are they here?
they're here? All right, well, have a snack and then we'll finish this thing.
Yeah, go, I'm good.
All right, guys.
All right, guys.
So we're going to start planting this aquarium. The first thing you'll notice is that I'm not going to use water. And the only reason why is because I want to keep things clean. It's a lot easier for you to plant on the aqua soil as is rather than to add water. When you add water, you break it a lot easier and it can be a mud fest, especially if you're not very experienced. So this is probably the easiest way. You always need tweezers. We at Seachem have all the tools that you can possibly think of. I'm old-fashioned. I use straight tweezers. There's people who like angled or curved tips. I'm good with this. I'm going to use needle tips for these because they're very gentle, and I'm going to use Glossostigma latinoides. This is probably one of the most old-school plants out there. And it's a carpeting plant. It's really easy to keep, and it's beautiful until it's not. So a lot of trimming will have to be done. Again, I'm not maintaining the tank, but they can always send me an email, and then we can just go over things. All right, so I think what matters the most here is that when you're planting, you want to make sure that you do it in a way that you give a gap in between the plants, so when they shoot out the runners, they will close the gap. So it will look nice and even, right? So in this case, I want to make these lines of Glossostigma, and as I go, when I'm done with the section, then and only then I'm going to start spraying, because it's very important to keep the plants moist. If you just leave them be there, they're going to dry up, and by the time you're filling up the tank, they're going to be dead. So go by sections, and we're going to start with the middle ground. And just so we can move faster, I'm going to ask for help. So I have Matt here that is going to help me with the opposite side. So I will just go over things with you really quickly. It's going to be foreground, and I'll say all the way up to the second, third. And we stop there so we can continue with the... So as you can see, the planting is kind of tight, but it helps a lot. I know it's an expensive thing to do. Buying plants in such amounts can be pricey, but again, if you're going to spend an arm and a leg on the system and everything that goes in it, and you're not going to actually get the plants you need to make it look the way you want it, it's just going to be the never-ending problem. And it's going to be frustrating, and it's never going to do what it was supposed to do in your head, in your original design. Designing the aquariums, it's all you. There is a lot of people who like drawing. I love what you do when you go, you know, observing nature is probably one of the coolest things that you can do. Go for a walk in the woods. I'm a runner, so I do trail running, and I take my breaks and I just soak in the environment, the creeks, the fallen trees, the mosses, and all that. I just don't take pictures. But Mr. Ryan here, if you follow him on Instagram, you will notice that he frames the places that he finds, and they're really cool. He puts a fake aquarium, like, I don't know what you call it, but I was like, oh, that looks really cool. And ever since you start doing that, now I'm like doing that in my head too. So.
Now, if you guys notice, the amount of glossy stigma that he's putting in there, what we split was basically 4 cups of
Yeah.
tissue culture. So what you're getting in each of those cups is an immense amount of plants.
Yes.
So cost-wise, it's actually not bad.
Not so bad. Not so bad.
And each of the pieces are, I'm sorry?
How do you go about splitting them up?
Just kind of tearing little
Second
small.
part of it.
Yep.
Yeah. 2 different types out there. Tropica uses a water-based growing medium. Most other companies use a gel medium. So if you get the gel, just rinse it under the tap. Remove as much as you can. Section your plants just like this. And that way you can just start filling up everything as you go.
Do you trim those in the cups?
No.
Do you trim the root cups?
Luis, do you dose straight away?
No, with aqua soils, no. With gravels, I do immediately. Like if you only have a sand bottom and you don't use aqua soil, you need to start dosing right away. So at first, I rely on tabs, and thank you for bringing that up. I use Flourish tabs because it contains vitamins, micro and macro elements, and it can be fed to the plants by radicular form. So nothing goes to the water column. So if you have plants that they need a lot of nutrients by the roots, talking about Lachinandras, Cryptocoryans, Echinodorus, plants of that nature, they benefit greatly from these, especially when you go with gravel-based substrates. You can always supplement with water column fertilization, but when it comes to aqua soils, because they have so many nutrition within, I like to observe, and usually my dosing starts in between the 4th and the 5th week. Because you will see them taking off like a rocket, and then they're just going to like boom. And then is when you start dosing. But again, what's the best thing to do? Just test. If you're getting your numbers already off, adjust it, and be consistent. You know, again, each tank is different. It goes a lot on the amount of plants you have, but you just be consistent with your fertilization, and the plants will just keep on growing. But never stop fertilizing. That's something that just gets me all the time, because it's you're trying to fight the algae by weakening the algae, and on the other hand, you're hurting the plants. So it's best for you to know where the problem is so you can address it.
All right, I'm gonna finish off these raffles. That's okay with you, Luis?
No, Sue, it's not.
No, not. Sorry. Okay, grab those tickets. I have a few left. 589. 589. There we go. I'll take your ticket. Thank you.
I'll race you, Bailey. Now I'll race you. Oh, you're showing up. You.
603. 603.
Actually, yeah, there, and take that one out because that's where the starting goes. I'm sorry, I didn't look.
584. 584. Got it?
We'll do repens, we do the nubias.
This is just ribbons. Okay. Where do you want the ribbons? I can start putting them in there.
Repens,
588.
repens, repens.
I'm gonna. 604. Five, 9, 4. Some of what I've given away is we have a fundamental pack which has our Flourish, our Flourish Excel, and our Flourish Iron. We also have a pack with your NPK, which is your nitrogen, phosphorus, and your potassium as well. So those are a couple of the Flourish lines for you.
Does anybody here uses Flourish Iron all the time? You do? Yeah. If you know that is ferrous gluconate and the plants actually metabolize it, iron is not mobile. So it really matters what source you have. If you get it on the ferric state, it's really hard for the plants to assimilate it. So the reason why we have it is because it's ferrous gluconate, and it will be actually uptake by the plants via the stem and leaf. It's so efficiently taken by the plants that if you were to conduct a testing, say 15 minutes after your dosings, you will get a 0 reading. So if you use it on a ferric form, it will linger there for hours and hours and hours because the plants are working overtime to make it available to them. So quality matters. Oh, we're gonna be done in 15 minutes. Let's go. Sushi.
How far up on the start now do you go?
Just make it nice and beefy. Squeeze it all in there.
Luis? Yes. Question for you. You mentioned earlier that a lot of algae issues are caused by not enough CO2. So if you wanted to slow down your plant growth, would you basically keep CO2 up, fertilization up, but lights down? Why would you want to slow it? Decrease maintenance. I want to go in there every couple of years. A lot of algae issues are caused by not enough CO2. So if you wanted to slow down your plant growth, would you basically keep CO2 up, fertilization up, but lights down?
Well, why would you want to slow?
Decrease maintenance.
I
want to go in there every couple.
Have you heard of low-tech tanks?
Okay, next. Crips.
You can shorten the photo period.
That's the photo period that you would limit.
Yeah, definitely. If you don't really want to have that crazy growth. But it's, again, you want to have your tank up and running. So just time it. Make sure the photo period is according to your schedule.
Correct. Yeah.
They will adapt to that. Cryptocorynes, the shade areas here. Which one is that one? Green?
Green.
Right here, please. Well, here.
Next. actually, I can't see it. So let me have, I'll trade for it.
I was always thinking like you would decrease the CO2 to slow down, but it doesn't seem like that's the one that you would want to decrease as much.
Do we have any more crips?
One more? Pots. I can.
Yeah, okay.
I was trying to find like a low energy one for, you know,
And the Nubius too.
We still have some CO2
Yeah.
in there, but not too
Just gonna get them out like this.
One more, or just two? Fill that in?
Can you handle it?
Yes.
All right.
Just looking for space.
And I just need a small. We have 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you can make it work. Now have these. You can have this. I only need a little bit.
Get high off this. That view.
Enjoy, my friend. Enjoy. Just take it in. Just take it in. Remember being, he was happy for that moment, even though he doesn't remember.
How much higher on this do you want me to go? Up there. Okay.
Around there. Oh, thank you much.
I didn't realize that everybody had a birthday, so I just want to say happy birthday to everybody.
All right, guys, so now we have the foreground plants. We have Staurogen repens, Cryptocorin green, and Cryptocorin undulata on the middle ground. I know Valen is allergic to Staurogen repens, but this plant is probably your best indicator for deficiencies. It will tell you right away that you are deficient in nitrogen. And it will tell you right away if you are deficient or you're developing chlorosis. So I really like this plant because if you can master to keep that plant happy, the rest of your aquarium will always be happy. Seriously. That's the only reason I like that plant, because it challenged me. And it's the only way that I can keep up with my dosing, knowing that things are going right. Because once, Staurogen repens.
What was the second thing you said? It's nitrogen and
Iron.
iron. Okay.
And for that matter, magnesium too, actually, because they're very similar. They all resemble chlorosis. So sometimes it's hard to say, but if you're testing, you know what you need to fix. Anubias.
Anubis is in that.
All right, so we're going to use Anubias petite. This is an epiphytic plant, and we glue them previously to a rock. My only advice when it comes to this particular species or any other epiphytic plant is that you have to pay attention on the direction you place the rhizomes. If you look at it, it's running that way. But if I position this, it's gonna look for the light and it's gonna look leggy and horrible because it's gonna run the opposite way, looking up for the light, it's gonna go up. So always position it with the horizon facing the front of the aquarium. So it doesn't matter in which angle, all right? And the beauty of this is that if you don't like it there, you just take it away. You just move it and you just place it somewhere else. No, it's upside down. Oh well. That's you. You did it.
I swear I'm paying attention. It's really bad. Oh, you got
Ferns.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that for the ferns. I think I wanna just tuck it in there. Just make this one bigger. And this one too. Voila. All right, now the ferns. If I may, please. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, you use this?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It looks better here. I have a lot of and I have rainbow.
All right, so now we have two different types of microsorum. We have microsorum trident mini and we have microsorum mini. All right, so if you pay attention to this, even though this tank is about 40 inches long, look at the size of the plants. If you were to use a Nubius nana, you know how big the leaves are, right? It will not work out as well as this. So for many, this is a big tank, right? But if you were to put really big plants, it will just not look very natural. So keep that in mind. Look at the size of the aquarium and accordingly choose the plants. All right, so now we have a foreground, a middle ground, and the epiphytic plants on top. I had a couple of moss. I don't know if it's here, but let's just move on. All right, the last part of this is going to be the stem plants. And the thing I like to do when it comes to stems is, earlier somebody approached me and said, like, hey, how do you keep them underwater? Because sometimes they float. And when you plant, you want to lean them towards the front and plant from that point to the back and stack them on top of each other. The whole reason why is because when you float the aquarium, they will rise with it. So you don't have to be poking at it time and time over. Just leave them be and they will rise on their own. You don't want to be pre-planting, that's the last thing you want, disturbing the structure because it will collapse. Probably you have before. So leave them be, carry on with your water changes. Once the plants root, they'll be fine. So keep that in mind. Another thing that I really like to do, I like to use the broadleaves on the opposite side and blend them in to narrower leaf stem plants. So we're going to use 7. We're going to do a grouping of 4 different plants here, and we're going to do 3 on this side. So we're going to do, I'll Alenterata. We're going to do deformis. We're going to do the deeplis, and we're going to do rotala green on this side. And oh, this is nice to have helpers. I need to get me a laser so I can use it right there. Right there. Well, that's when you get assisted by professionals. So. You want to do this side?
Yeah.
I'll hold it. How about that for a change?
Wait, you're using AR here?
What?
Alternate theory was over here. Alternate theory?
No, this is right here.
Yeah.
Wisteria. Here we're gonna. Where are the others?
I have Atra, Mario. Where this one is.
Let's do this. Let's make the biggest bush.
Sure.
Then we do this, and then we do Atra. So 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
And let me get another. Now we'll do the. Where is the?
Focus down.
Yeah, there you go. Now we'll get busy.
Earlier you mentioned shade.
Yeah.
Is there like a
Any
percentage
questions so
of
far?
what should be shade versus non-shade? Earlier you mentioned shade.
Yeah.
Is there like a percentage of what should be shade versus non-shade?
Not really. It's just the specific needs of the plants. So shade plants, they can do well under those conditions, but they can do better under light as well. So when it comes to an aquascape that is going to have the lights above it like this, you can see natural shading happening. So you want to place the plants that you know ahead of time they're going to thrive under those conditions. That's the only reason why. So you're looking at Starogen repens as well. Most of the cryptocoryms, they will take the shade quite well. Anubias, ferns. What else, Bailin?
And as far as when you're photographing, I guess you'd say for contests, is there again a percentage of what they want to look at as far as black states?
It honestly depends from the judges you choose, and it actually even goes down to the style that you're looking at. If you look at the Asian styles of dioramas, that they emphasize in depth and perception, so they will have a focal point but it's followed by stages that create enough depth, and they will actually use the entire shape of the aquarium for the aquascape. The entire thing is used, all right? So if you pay attention to most of the winning works, the first thing you notice is that they seem to not have this. It just have this, the sense of eternity, like it just keeps on going when they use the mirroring masterfully or when they use the shading to prevent that from happening. Sometimes the mirroring can be used to your benefit because you will just extend the work, the look of the rock, the look of the driftwood. And that's much more advanced techniques. This is a tank that was put together in less than 2 hours and is a nature aquarium style. It's probably one of the easiest things that you can start with. And as you evolve aquascaping, you can actually start making modifications. You can start using open foregrounds that have nothing but sand and the decoration sand, on the, you know, so you can have a very, very dense triangular shape design with a negative space that is going to highlight the fish you like the most. Judges look at fish. I don't like fish all that much, but I can tell you that judges look at fish. And they don't look at it as a biotope, but as a complement of your tank. So this is when you decide, do I want a planted aquarium or do I want plants for my fish? Because that makes a huge difference. If you look at very nice planted aquariums, the first thing you notice is that, what are the fish? Oh, there they are. It'll take a minute. But if you go to rainbow fish land and you have melanotinians that they're this big and they're doing what they do and flashing to the males competing for space and beautiful Balisnerias everywhere, well, hey, it's beautiful. But as a competition tank, it will not be sustainable unless you're looking at a biotope, I guess, and you will have to be very specific species of Balisneria endemic to the zones where the fish come from. So yeah, it's very diverse. And again, it just breaks out on the styles. And right now, for the most part, Asia has been leading this diorama. We have a really good aquascaper here in America, Stephen Chong, that is, if you really want to learn more about those techniques, because they go down to building, actually. They make structures, really, you know, and they plant around them. You will also notice that the plants they use, most of the time, they're not too complicated, because the competition time is very short. So there are so many contests one after the other that they want to have those tanks set up in January and take the picture by May and take it out by June so they can start for the next one at the end of the year. So that's how competitive things are now. I think actively, people who actually professionally aquascape for a living, they're probably taking, what do you say, 3-4 tanks per year? Because there is contests that they're paying you $20,000. We had the contest too, but we are still debating if we're going to continue or not for many reasons. Especially paying abroad is quite difficult when we are based here in America for people who compete from other countries. So I think they're going to look at this closely, and whenever they decide if it's something that we can carry on and do it, we'll do it. But we had Mr. Mahout from Iran won it, and he made a beautiful composition with shade, moss, plants, and it resembles an old forest, and it was breathtaking. He took home $20,000, and I believe he won Korea too, like third place. That was another 10 grand. And I'm like, they're out there competing because they're making good money. I think there's a couple aquascapers that they probably pocket close to $70,000. Yeah, just by competing. But you look at their work and the planning that is behind it, it's amazing. It's just drawings and the way they They prep for everything. They take pictures, dead center of the aquarium 150 times a day, and they compare images one after the other. All right, so when you see presentations, you'll see the famous, they look at it from the side. I don't care how good you are looking at it from the side, it's never accurate. Your eyes will always lie to you. If you're competing, you have to rely on equipment and technology so you can see what you're doing. Because even when you just step back, it changes how the aquarium look. It changes, right? So it may look good to your eyes, but when you actually take the picture, that the camera can actually take dead center and look at all the angles and all the shades that are provided and overexposures and whatnot, then you're just, you're playing. So they're serious about this because there's big money behind it. And of course, the prestige of having the ribbons and all that stuff that motivate aquascapers all over the world. I used to love it. It's not for me. I like the teaching side of it. And I really want to see more American aquascapers because we haven't been very consistent. It happens almost every 5 to 10 years when you have somebody that ranks really high, and then it kind of like goes back to like quiet. And if you notice the other countries competing, they're always there, always there, always there, always there. So I really want to push this to all the people like him, the young ones, that they're really learning, they're enthusiastic about it, or the seasoned aquascapers, that they need to better their aquarium keeping to become better aquascapers. So learn, learn, learn. So when you go to compete, you will actually know how to deal with the problems and fix them, rather than use Photoshop or God knows what. All right, so this may not win a contest, but if you do things right, and if you bring this tank to a completion, it will be a beautiful design, and it will look great. And if you put the right fish, it will look even better. And I thank you all for coming. Again, it was Express Aquascaping, Fast and Furious. We're done. And if you have any other questions, I'm here to answer. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I was back there talking, but I just wanted to thank everybody for coming. I wanted to thank Scott for hosting us, AGA.
Yes.
You guys got an amazing club. You have an amazing local store.
AGA.
Be sure to support your local stores.
Oh, you're here, so good.
We appreciate you. If there's anything you guys need, Seachem wise, we have a tech support. We have 5 marine biologists and pedestal staff. You can call Seachem, ask questions, troubleshoot.
These are not mine. These are.
And, I do have one
Thanks, man.
last
Appreciate
grand
it.
prize. Many people don't know that Seachem has come out with a doser. So we have a primary doser and a secondary doser. You can use one or you can use a lot of really, really unique features about this. So we've got one more prize. And I need someone to draw the ticket for me because I know who I want to draw the ticket. Oh, and if she picks her, she gets it. Go ahead and call it.
614.
614. Woo! Congratulations.
Oh no, that's a tricolor.
That's for you. That's for you to take home, my friend. That's my little token of appreciation. Yeah, it's all over the deepest end.
I'm sorry?
It's all over this one here.
I know. I figured it would be. That's where it's used.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna wipe the glass so people can look at it.
Do you want to keep a tray up here, or you got?
Yeah, man, everything.
Looks better than my tank.
Thank you.
I don't know what that is.
All right, Beth, I'm gonna clean this up really quick so people can see it.
What is this plant?
Myrophyllum matogorsense.
Did you catch that?
It was fun to watch this.
Thank you.
I just wouldn't have the patience to put all these little things in.
Yeah, neither do I. That's why I took advantage of the guys today. 'Cause
But after you put all these things, right? How you will be putting the root tabs? Like you have to seasonally like add the root tabs, right?
you don't need them right away.
No, actually, I'm talking about like maintaining. So if after 3 months, right, you may be putting the root tabs.
I will place them right next to the plant and gently push them as far down as I can.
Because it is like it will be full. I mean, it will be filled with.
You just plants regenerate just fine, so you'll be okay.
How would you add the pristine after the tank is up and running?
I will dose it daily.
Dose it daily
Into the water column.
A couple millimeters.
Something about in the substrate.
Oh, well, of course, but that's when the tank matured.